What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. That your day is going absolutely fantastic. And you gotta love these spring games in college football. And I know they're just spring games, so the stats and everything like that doesn't really count. But in a time when there's really no college football, this little couple week span where we get to see all these new looks of these teams, I mean, I absolutely love it. This is already the second spring game that I've watched of the day. And it was Tennessee, which was a fantastic game, really high-powered offense, sort of uncharacteristic to sort of the Tennessee offenses that we saw, especially last year, but in the past couple years in particular. So we'll get to the breakdown of sort of each one of the positions in just a second and sort of what I saw from each one of these players. But I've been really impressed with Tennessee over the course of the past little while, particularly, throughout this college football offseason, the past couple of months. Because you date back to last season, you're obviously a 3-7 season, not good by any means. You started 2-0, really hot, and then just a tremendously poor end to the season. But so much happened throughout the season. Obviously, Guarantano and the issues at the quarterback position, having to bench and start him, move a bunch of different guys around. Also, Pruitt at the head coach position, they ended up firing him. And we'll get to that in just a second. But overall, you lose some big core players on your offense and go through a recruiting scandal, but then hire a really good head coach in Josh Heupel coming from UCF, really knows how to run an offense. And I think we saw that today. And I think Tennessee's going to get some real big players and talented players to be able to step up for them this year. So we'll start with the quarterback position and what I saw from them today in this spring game. I mean, they got so many options, but today was the Harrison Bailey show, in my opinion. So good. Him and Brian Maurer were really good, especially early, and really accurate on their deep balls, scoring points in bunches, but really just chucking the ball down the field. Some of that's credit to the offensive line, as we'll get to in a second. Some of that is a discredit to the defense. But overall, I mean, these are guys that aren't necessarily guys that jump out at you as like star quarterbacks in the SEC, but are both guys who could end up playing, at the QB1 position this year for Tennessee and provide some real good quality, I think, for this Tennessee offense. Then obviously you got Hendon Hooker, transfer from VT, a guy that I really love, just so good. He's a gunslinger, moves around in the pocket as well. And then even rumors of Joe Milton. I'm a Michigan fan, so I've seen Joe Milton a lot, and I loved him. He was inconsistent, but he can throw the ball like 80 yards down the field. He's mobile. If he can get a little more accurate, I mean, he could be a star quarterback. So, sort of a rough year last year for quarterbacks when you look at what Guarantano couldn't do. And even though there's not necessarily a guy this year that jumps out at you at being necessarily that guy, they got a ton of depth at the position. Next up at the running back position. Now, this is an interesting one because Tennessee obviously loses two guys in the backfield on sort of what was the light in a very dark place last year for Tennessee, and Gray and Chandler both transfer out of the program. So you need a guy like Jabari Small to sort of step up for Tennessee. We saw him a bit today. He looked pretty good. So I think, you're getting less production from the running back position, but I think you got a better O-line. The receiving core, I think, is going to be all right this year, and you got a better quarterback. So I do think that even with the lost production at running back, you're getting an overall better offense. Which moves us to wide receiver. You lose Josh Palmer to the NFL, so you need a guy like Jones Jr. To step up. The receivers actually did really well today, again, running downfield. The coverage wasn't insane, but Tillman, Jones, guys like that really stepped up. I know it's only a spring game, but again, played very well today. And then the offensive line. You lose a couple of guys on the offensive line. And I know the defensive line was missing a couple of guys today, but overall they were really good. I came from a Texas A&M game that was the complete opposite. And what a good offensive line in a spring game allows you to do is really evaluate the quarterbacks and the way that they're sort of going to be in a real college football game setting. The offensive line was great. It looks like they're really bought in. I think they got a ton of talent on that offense. Spraggins was really good. Just one guy that stood out for me. But overall, again, this is a really uncharacteristic offense in comparison to what we've seen from Tennessee, not only last year, but really for the past several years. And with an offensive head coach and Josh Heupel now coaching Tennessee, you really got to like the direction of not only this offense, but the program as a whole. On the defensive side of the ball, Not much to say. The format was sort of weird for the defense in this one being an offense versus defense kind of game. I know the D-line was missing a couple of guys, so I don't really want to bash them for not being able to put pressure on any of the quarterbacks at really any point in the game. But that being said, the secondary was not great. Coverage downfield, missed sort of reads, some huge holes at the beginning of the game that allowed Tennessee to really get downfield and push that ball, score in the bunches, as I was sort of mentioning before. I think Tennessee will clean it up. But I say this about Tennessee all the time. They got talent, and they got talent always on offense and on defense, it seems. So hopefully now Heupel, even though he's an offensive-minded coach, and they're able to really just settle down the defense. And I think Tennessee really could be sort of a sneaky team this year in the SEC. I know people might bash me for that in the comments just because they never seem to get up to the expectations, but I really am a fan of the talent and the way Tennessee looks like on paper. Quickly, Tennessee, the recruiting class of 2021, I did a lot of coverage on them this year. Some particular guys, Aaron Willis, Caden Salter, actually, who's another option that Tennessee could have at quarterback. I don't think he's going to play this year, but he's a guy that, next year or 2 years from now, I think could be a really good quarterback at the collegiate level. You got Marley in there as well. This was a pretty solid recruiting class for Tennessee. I think, you didn't really have any five-star top rated recruits. But sort of when you go through and you sort of cover the type of guys that they have, some really underrated guys, some guys that I think could benefit Tennessee this year, help them this year. But I think Tennessee as just a whole is moving, really well in the direction that they're sort of going for down the future. And I think, again, Tennessee has a lot of options. So just looking forward, I'm looking at sort of how that running back position develops. I'm looking at particularly if Joe Milton does end up coming to Tennessee, who ends up getting the starting job. Is it Bailey? Is it Hooker? And then how consistent can these guys be? It looks like everybody on offense is bought in. Can they get the defense to buy in? And can they be more consistent than last year? They started the year off really strong, but can they go for a full SEC schedule? We know how competitive that's going to be. Still, teams like Alabama, Georgia, even LSU is going to be better this year. So how consistent and how good can Tennessee stay throughout the whole season, particularly into that SEC schedule? But again, I've seen Josh Heupel. Obviously, everybody knows about how successful UCF has been over the course of the past several years, and credit to him and the offensive-minded coach that he is. And I just think that Tennessee fans, it's such a big fan base. And, I compare them a lot to a team like Michigan who continue to seem to underachieve. But, I'm rooting for you guys. I really hope that you guys are good this year. I really do like Tennessee, and I hope you guys can do some damage in the SEC. But if you guys did watch today's spring game, let me know your thoughts on the game down in the comment section below. What did you see? What do you guys also think in terms of your predictions looking forward to the actual 2021 schedule? Is this finally Tennessee's year to do some damage, at least make a decent bowl game, hopefully? But if you guys did enjoy today's video, please do me a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit that subscribe button. It would be doing me a huge favor. And we do cover college football quite a bit on this channel. So if you do enjoy this type of content, you will want to stick around. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.